Hi, my name's John McKaig. I'm licensed real estate representative with Royal LePage RCR in Alliston. I normally talk about real estate in these videos, but I thought I would put a couple of videos together regarding one of my passions, which is motorcycles. And this one's talking about fun rides that I like to take during the season. So I know the seasons are relatively short. This year, 2019, has been even, seems like in the beginning at least, has been a little bit shorter. But hopefully we'll have a good second part to the season. I have been out a few times on some rides, and I plan for a couple of longer rides this season. I've been riding for a few years now, and I've put on approximately 25,000 kilometers per year. So that's pretty good for this is going to be my third season, and I have a nice bike. I bought a Harley Davidson. I know that it's not something everybody would want, but I bought the bike because I want something that's comfortable, something that looks nice, something that's easy to handle, and that is going to be comfortable enough to go on longer trips without being so cumbersome. Some of these bikes are huge, and they're cumbersome when you get in around towns. I want to be able to have maneuverability, especially as a first time rider. I want something that's maneuverable and it's not going to overwhelm me in the beginning. So the type of rides that I like to take, I like variety, and I like something that's relatively scenic. Now I'm based out of Alliston, which is north of Toronto, about 45 minutes, not too far from Barrie. So it is a more rural area. But that being said, is that I've ridden through more urban areas as well, and there are some nice rides. I prefer to stay away from the urban areas. Um, I like the more the wide open roads and the more scenic areas. Um, but there are times when I actually have to go through urban areas, and I know that to go from an urban area into some of these areas I'm going to be talking about, it's not that difficult to do. So what I do is I choose loops. If I'm not riding to work or if I'm not riding to a specific place, what I do is when I go out for rides, I choose loops. So I'll do loops that are 2 hours, half days, full days, 2 days, and 3 days. Obviously, the 2 days and 3 days mean that it's overnight. Nice thing about Harley Davidson, the bike that I have, is that there's some storage on it. Some Harley Davidsons, they don't have storage. Some bikes don't have storage, and in that case, what you can do is you can bungee cord your luggage to your bike. Um, just make sure that when you do it in a safe manner. Buy some good equipment. So make sure you buy some really secure straps, and make sure that you buy whatever luggage you use. Make sure it's good luggage, and that you don't overload the bike. I find that less is more, and that if I do need something and I am out on the road, it's easier sometimes just to buy it than to actually haul it with me. So that's a little bit of advice to give you. So 2 hour rides from Alliston, that would include Barrie, Collingwood, Creemore, Orangeville, and Lake Simcoe. That's just more what I consider filler rides. So it's just, hey, I've got 2 hours, let's go for a quick ride. And the most important thing is that you do actually get out and ride. I think that even for myself, if I go 4 or 5 days without riding, I find that you lose a little bit of the edge. So it's important to get out as much as you possibly can. Half day rides from me, it would be Collingwood, Orillia, and Lake Simcoe. Meaning Lake Simcoe, what I do is I'll start at Alliston, and I will go down through Bradford and around through Beaverton and up around to Orillia, and then back down. That means that sometimes I have to take Highway 11. That's not a big deal, and Highway 400. I'm comfortable enough on those roads. I don't necessarily ride them unless I absolutely have to, but there are other ways of avoiding. It takes a little bit longer and often quite scenic, and I do take those roads as well, which would be Oldbury Road, Moonstone Road, and also Horseshoe Valley Road. Full day rides. I've done loops. I've got left from Alliston. I've gone down to Grand Bend. Now, obviously, that's cross country. So you go to Grand Bend. Then what I do is I head north and I go through the towns of Goderich, Kincardine, Port Elgin, Southampton, and around to Owen Sound, and then back through Collingwood and back to Alliston. That is a very full day, so you want to make sure that you leave in plenty of time. And one thing that I have taught myself to do is to try to avoid riding at night. I have ridden at night. My very first experience was not a good experience. I was over at Lake Huron. I left a little bit too late from Lake Huron coming back, and it was about a 2 hour ride back, and I left around 7:30 at night from Lake Huron. And by the time I got home, it was pitch dark, it was freezing cold, and what had happened was it was so dark on the road that my headlight only picked up a shadow at the very last minute, and it happened to be a raccoon. I hit the raccoon. The raccoon bounced off my motorcycle. I got into a speed wobble at 100 kilometers an hour, but I was able to pull out, got the old heart rate up a little bit. These things can happen. It's just that, if you don't have to ride at night, I highly recommend that you don't, unless you're in a familiar area and it's a well-traveled area. Some of these back roads, I highly recommend not riding at night. So that would be one loop. Another loop that I've taken is I've gone down through to the Welland Canal and Niagara-on-the-Lake, and then back through Toronto. Now that meant that in order to do that, I had to ride the 400 series highways, which that was actually my first experience on 400 series highways. So you have to keep your wits about yourself, and you have to ride with a certain amount of confidence. Don't let people push you, meaning that if somebody's tailgating you or something like that, just ride within your limits, but make sure you're staying with the flow of traffic. And when you do go to make moves, always shoulder check, always use signals, keep your distance between vehicles, and just be vigilant of who's around you. Another ride that I would take is down to Port Dover, and went cross country down to Port Dover. Beautiful ride, and then down to Long Point and back up. That was close to a full day. I do the Lake Huron tour, so if I don't go all the way down to Grand Bend, I may pick it up at Goderich or at Kincardine. And sometimes I ride the other direction, so I'll actually start at Owen Sound and ride south down the shore. Another area that I like to go to is Prince Edward County. So I ride that one. I ride through Toronto. I tend to leave when I know that the traffic is going to be a little bit less, which is kind of hit and miss. I ride the 400 series highways all the way to Trenton, and I get off at Trenton and I go into Prince Edward County. I take the ferry across and head over to Kingston, and then from Kingston I head north. I go across the 401, meet up with Highway 7, and then take Highway 7 back across through Havelock, Peterborough, Lindsay, and end up meeting up at Bradford and home from Bradford. That's a full day. I've done Parry Sound, means that you take the 400 extension up to Parry Sound. That's a beautiful ride. You can go across cross country, and you can get to Huntsville, and from Huntsville then you take the Highway 11 south. But it's a beautiful ride, and it's very twisty roads. It's really, really nice. Algonquin Park, so I've gone up to Huntsville. Instead of going towards Parry Sound, I go the other direction. I go through Algonquin Park. I come out at Whitney, which is on the other side of Algonquin Park, and I head south, and I end up at Bancroft, and from Bancroft I head across, and I end up at Aurelia, and then from Aurelia I ride home. That's a beautiful ride through the park. I ride across to Peterborough, so in that situation I will ride, and I actually just did that not like 2 weeks ago. And what I do is I ride to Aurelia. I go from Aurelia, I go across to Coboconk. From Coboconk, I get to Fenelon Falls to Bobcaygeon, Bobcaygeon to Lindsay, Lindsay to Peterborough. So I hit all the locks there. That's really, really cool. And then I take Highway 7 home, and it's a beautiful ride. The other one I take, it's not quite as full a day, but it's still relatively full. I go from Alliston to Orangeville, Orangeville to Fergus, Fergus, Elora, Elora, Elmira, St. Jacobs to Stratford, and then up to Listowel. And Listowel, I go up to Mount Forest and across Highway 89 to Alliston and back home. That's a beautiful ride as well. It can be a full day too. Then my 2 day I did. This was a real fun trip. I went from Alliston to Aurelia, Aurelia to Bancroft, Bancroft. I rode down through the valley to Calabogie. And Calabogie I went south to Perth. Perth I went to Ottawa. Hung out in Ottawa for a little bit, and it was a weekend in the summertime, and I tried to find a hotel room, couldn't find a hotel room, so I ended up, the closest hotel room I could get was in Arnprior, so I actually had to double back, and I got to Arnprior, and I had no problem staying at Arnprior. I had a beautiful little motel room for the night, and it was very secure. That's one thing you want to make sure with a motorcycle is that you are in a secure area. And from there, the next morning, I got back on my bike and I rode north, and I rode through Renfrew, Pembroke, Deep River, Mattawa, and I got to North Bay. When I got to North Bay, it was probably around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And what I was planning on doing was riding across into Quebec and riding up the east side of the Ottawa River up to Kirkland Lake, crossing back into Ontario, and then coming south down Highway 11 all the way down to Barrie. But when I got to North Bay, I was seeing that the weather was changing, and I decided that instead of taking chances, I would just ride home, so that's what I did. And that's generally what I do when I am out riding. I always have an option A, an option B, and an option C. And this summer, one of the trips I'm planning on doing is it's going to be a 3-day trip. So it's 2 nights away. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ride from Barrie up to Sault Ste. Marie, from Sault Ste. Marie up to Wawa. From Wawa, I head across to Timmins. From Timmins, I go north up to Cochrane, and from Cochrane, I take Highway 11 all the way south, down through North Bay and back to Barrie. What I may do is, depending on weather and time, is I may cut off and I may end up going across when I'm heading south. Before I get to North Bay, I may head across to Sudbury, and then from Sudbury head across to North Bay, just for a little bit of change of scenery, and then head south from there. Again, everything's going to be dependent on weather. What I tend to do is on these kinds of trips, I try to head out on a Friday morning. I try to avoid the traffic on the Saturdays, especially on some of these highways where a lot of the traffic is going to the Muskokas, and there's nothing I dislike more than sitting in traffic. Bikes are meant to be ridden open roads, and so that I try to find as many open roads as I possibly can. Um, One of your greatest assets is going to be your phone. You can use your phone as GPS, and GPS is going to help you in. Hopefully, you've got it pre-planned, but there's going to be times where maybe because of road construction, or maybe because you missed a turnoff or something like that, you're going to need to be able to refer to GPS just to make sure get you back on course, or to find an alternate way to get to where you're going. But cell phone is certainly important too, because if you ever run into trouble, you've got your cell phone with you. I have CAA, and I've added my motorcycle to my plan. So if I ever run into trouble, worst case scenario is I call and CAA picks me up and takes me to where I need to go. So I hope you find this useful. As I say, I've been riding for 3 years. This is my third season, and I've put about 25,000 kilometers per season. So that's a fair amount for a first-time new rider. But I find, and this is my belief, is that the more you get out and the more that you ride, the better experience you get, the more confidence you get. But you see things and you learn things about yourself, about your bike, and about traffic around you. What things to do, what things to avoid, and the best way to have fun. So I hope you find this useful, and I do have a series of videos. I am a real estate agent. I work for Royal LePage RCR in Alliston. If you are thinking about buying or selling real estate, and you are within the area of Alliston, I go into York, Peel, Dufferin, and Simcoe counties. If you are thinking about buying or selling, I'd certainly appreciate hearing from you. I'm with Royal LePage RCR. My office is 7 Victoria Street West in Alliston. You can reach me. My Toronto line 1-866-772-5368. My local is 705-435-3000. My direct line is 705-791-2221. My website is www.johnmccaigsells.ca. My email is johnmccaig@royallepage.ca, and my Facebook business page is the symbol @ John McCaig Realtor. Feel free to contact me any of those ways. If you know of somebody who's thinking about buying or selling in this area, one of the greatest compliments I can receive as a realtor is a referral of someone's family or friends. I would certainly appreciate you passing my name on to them. I would very much like the opportunity to work with them, or with you, or both. Yeah. Other than that, again, as I say, this video is designed for just to show you that I have another side to me. It's not just all real estate. However, I do have a series of real estate videos as well. Feel free to check them out. I'd certainly appreciate any feedback that you do have. So again, thanks very much for your time. If you are a motorcycle owner already, happy trails. If you are thinking about buying and getting into motorcycles, feel free to contact me. I'd certainly appreciate talking to you. I love talking about real estate. I love talking about motorcycles, and I love meeting people. Okay, have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.